Welcome to Smok'N Crypto, where we bring you all the latest updates, crypto news, technical analysis, and educational content. Welcome to our first educational video here on the channel. I want to thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the content that we've got for you. In this first video, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? We're also going to be touching on mining, hashing, and the halving process. If you do enjoy the content, please don't forget to smash that like button. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Please subscribe and don't forget to hit that bell for notifications so you know when we put out new content and when we go live. Let's get on into it. So let's start at the very top. What is Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin is the first ever cryptocurrency. It was announced initially in October 2008 and went live in January 2009 when the first Genesis block was created. Nobody actually knows who created Bitcoin, as the creator or creators used a pseudonymous name, Satoshi Nakamoto, and nobody actually knows who that is. In the white paper produced by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2008, Bitcoin was presented as a way to store and send value anywhere around the world at any time and at almost no cost. It was described as a trustless peer-to-peer payment system. Since then, Bitcoin has become a whole lot more than just a currency, but we will save that for another video. Bitcoin allows people to send peer-to-peer transactions without the need for a middleman, credit card, or a bank account. The transactions are logged on a public ledger, and unlike a bank's ledger, which is private, centralized, and manipulatable, Bitcoin's ledger is transparent, which means anyone that has access to the internet can view the transactions on the ledger. Also, Bitcoin is decentralized, which means it's not controlled by one central majority entity. It was created after the great financial crisis of 2008, which saw a lot of people lose a lot of money and actually led to us having some of the greatest inflation we have ever seen. The collapse mostly happened due to bad practice and poor accreditation of mortgages in the US, which created a giant hole that eventually collapsed and caused a global financial market meltdown. If you're interested in seeing a bit more on this with a bit of entertainment value, there's actually a great film, currently I think on Netflix, called The Big Short. It's well worth a watch, and if you're interested, please do check that out. So, Bitcoin was created after this giant financial crash due to a huge lack of trust in the existing financial systems. It was decided we needed something decentralized that can't be controlled or manipulated by these huge financial entities or by any bad players that might be looking to corrupt or manipulate the ledger in some way. So how is Bitcoin actually decentralized? Well, rather than a ledger being stored in one place like a computer or by one person, government, bank, corporation, or entity, it is stored on a network of computers around the world that use the open source Bitcoin software. This is why a blockchain is also known as a DLT, or a distributed ledger technology, because the ledger is spread across several nodes around the world. The people running this software are known as miners. They mine Bitcoin from the blockchain. So how does this work? Well, they devote processing power from their computers to actually process the transactions on the network. And each time a transaction is processed, they take a small fee from the person making the transaction. And this is rewarded to them each time they process a transaction on the ledger. This is known as mining Bitcoin. It provides an incentive for people to dedicate power to the system to allow the network to function. Without this incentive, there would probably be no one mining, and there would be no active nodes to process the transactions on the network. This has become quite a lucrative process for some people, and you now see huge Bitcoin farms devoted to processing the transactions on the network, for which fees are rewarded, and some people have managed to set up successful businesses using this process. However, many mining companies struggle to keep afloat when the price of Bitcoin is down, as the energy used to run these mining farms can be immense, and with rising energy costs, it can be difficult to remain profitable. Each computer on the network is known as a node. Any transactions on the ledger need to go through a consensus process where all the nodes agree on each transaction. Once all the nodes on the network agree, the transaction is processed and recorded on the ledger. This consensus algorithm is known as proof of work. Once a transaction is recorded and logged on the blockchain, it can never be altered. There is, however, one unlikely but potential weakness to the security of the network. If one entity were able to gain a 51% share of the Bitcoin market cap, they would potentially be able to manipulate the ledger. However, with a current market cap of $506 billion, that would require one entity to possess over $253 billion of Bitcoin. Other than this potential flaw, Bitcoin is immutable, meaning it can't be tampered with due to the built-in consensus mechanisms. Often this is referred to as a trustless network, as there is no need to trust anyone to accurately complete the transactions like you would need to do with a bank. One big part of this consensus mechanism is the hashing process. Now, as we've mentioned, every transaction on the network is checked and validated by the nodes. Each block is linked to the one before it using a coding process known as hashing. This means that if someone was somehow able to corrupt or forge the data in a block, then they would also need to alter all of the information in all of the blocks created after it. When the next block was sent for validation, the network would notice the anomaly and reject the change. Because there are multiple nodes on the network around the world, that anomaly would only be on one copy of the ledger from one of the nodes and would not match the other copies of the ledger. The transaction would stand out as an anomaly and be rejected by the network. Unlike fiat currencies such as the dollar, pound, or the euro, which can be printed infinitely, gradually diluting the value down over time to zero, there is a cap on the total number of bitcoins that can ever come into existence. This stands at 21 million bitcoins. So what is a blockchain, and why is Bitcoin known as a blockchain? Well, when Bitcoin was created, it was decided that data would be stored on the ledger in blocks, and the size of each block in terms of data is predetermined in the way Bitcoin was set up. The transactions that are made are recorded in a ledger which forms a list. Once the list reaches a data size equivalent to that of one block, the block is finalized or discovered, and a new block begins. Each block is created one after another, and they link together like a chain. Although the total number of Bitcoin that can ever be produced are 21 million, there's currently only approximately 19 million of those 21 in circulation. The miners running the nodes on the network all individually store a copy of the Bitcoin ledger. Each node will validate transactions, add the transactions to their copy of the Bitcoin ledger, and then broadcast the new ledger changes to all the other computers on the network in the form of a block. Currently, a new block is created on average every 10 minutes, and each time a block is completed, new Bitcoin are minted, and the miner that finalized the block will receive an additional block reward. The block reward currently stands at 6.25 Bitcoin per block. Now, it's important to note here that that doesn't mean each miner is getting 6.25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. That would be astronomical. What's actually happening is, although it takes 10 minutes to discover each block, and each block yields a 6.25 Bitcoin reward for the miner that successfully discovered it, it is important to understand that the entire Bitcoin mining network is basically competing in this block discovery process. This means that only a single miner in the entire mining network will actually successfully discover the block. And since there are potentially tens of thousands of Bitcoin miners in operation, the likelihood of any single miner discovering a block is very unlikely. For this reason, the vast majority of Bitcoin miners work together as part of a mining pool, combining their hash rate to stand a better chance of discovering a block. Then it doesn't matter which miner in the pool actually discovers the block. The rewards are split and distributed evenly throughout the pool, giving each miner a greater chance of actually yielding some Bitcoin from the rewarding process. When each block is discovered, however, the amount of Bitcoin that they're receiving has to be split and divided between them. With the block every 10 minutes approximately and a 6.25 Bitcoin per block reward, that means around 900 new Bitcoin are added to circulation every day. However, built into the functionality of Bitcoin is a halving process, which means for every 210,000 blocks that get added to the Bitcoin blockchain, the reward for each block is cut in half. This means that at the next halving, the reward will reduce from 6.25 Bitcoins a block to 3.125. And at the current rate, this is expected to happen around March 2024 next year. This will give Bitcoin an inflation rate of 1.8% per annum. Eventually, when all the Bitcoin have been mined, the inflation rate of Bitcoin will eventually reduce to zero. This is estimated to occur in 2140, which is 117 years from now. Once that last coin is harvested, no more Bitcoin will ever be created. So there we have it, guys. That's a brief introduction to Bitcoin. I hope you enjoyed the content. Please do us a massive favor and smash up that like button. Leave us some comments to let us know what you think. And also, please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit that bell so you receive notifications of when we put out new content and when we go live. Until the next time, guys, have a great time. And I look forward to seeing you in our next video.